Please order at 1 p.m. I note that we have a quorum present. And remind us all that this meeting is being streamed on YouTube. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the June 11th, 2025 meeting of the Governance Committee. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as written?
So moved.
Moved, and I second it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Well, it looks like Adam Jacobs is calling in. Hold on here. Hello, Adam.
Hi. Hey, Mike, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be about 15 minutes late. I took the wrong exit.
Okay, we'll be here when you get here. Thanks for calling in. Drive carefully. No, not necessary. Well, Adam Jacobs, our other committee member, is en route and will be arriving, he said, within the next 15 minutes. But we do have a quorum as we speak. The second item on the agenda are a series of information items. And the first item is a review of the board retreat strategic objectives. I am going to actually let me pass these down if you would, John. And this will be a part of the permanent record, but part of my responsibility as governance chair is to listen carefully to opportunities for improvement in how the board conducts its business and meets its objectives and does its duty. And we've had many conversations over the last several months, and this is my summary of what I believe I heard. I've asked board members to review the document, and many have weighed in with suggestions for improvement or clarity, and I've made those changes and incorporated them in what we have before us today. And it's very likely, as I believe this should be a living document, that will continue to refine it as we grow to understand our duties and responsibilities. But the first item for the 2026 objectives, and there are 8 such objectives, is to streamline committee agendas to achieve more opportunity for inquiry and discussions. And the thought is that we should shorten staff presentations to fewer slides and use indices for more detail to be used if and when needed for inquiry. Ideally, it would be roughly 2 minutes per slide, 5 slides maximum to give the broad picture. The index would cover details that we can refer to in discussion, but then challenge the board to one, understand the issues, and 2, share their thoughts on how we can meet the mission and the issue that's being presented and reconcile it. So we're going to be working closely, when I say we, all committee chairs especially, to work with the agendas as they're developed and achieve a little more discipline and see if we can improve the performance and shorten the formality of it and create the creative part. Second objective is to leverage the new onboard tool to improve focus on enterprise, board, and department goals and objectives and key performance indicators. So we're about a month in, I think, with this tool, and we're all continuing to learn to do it by the hour and by the meeting. And I think we've learned that there are settings that I'm looking at Tamika and Veronica, who are really operating it, that you can control how the tools are used. So I think our opportunity is to continue to use the tool, find out what we'd like it to do differently, and then explore the settings that are on the tool.
Yes.
So John, you would.
Will you be able to give us feedback then about how we're actually using them? Like,
Yes, we can. I think we can
this
tell
might
when
be
they,
helpful for the board to know, like, how often are we using it? How
How
much
they're-
time are we spending on it? You know, are we reading?
I don't know
material?
about time, but I can see when they look at it, when they've RSVP'd for meetings. So we can tell that you've looked at it, that you've logged in. I don't know if can you tell the time?
There's a couple of other settings that we kind of deactivated, but I'm not sure if they would find it to be helpful, such as receiving reminders to review the book and for those who haven't reviewed it. So we have it disabled. I don't know if that's something that they would like to activate, if it'll be helpful.
Well, I think what
Might
we
be-
should do is challenge ourselves at a full board meeting when we're all here and when we have an appropriate moment to ask and share skills, knowledge, experiences with the board book and
It's much easier than the last. It's much easier to use. So, at least to
Thank
me.
I can better the last one.
Yeah, me too.
I rarely use it last one. I use this one all the time.
Yeah,
Nice.
and we-
I'm excited.
I can actually find stuff on
And I know that, for example, we learned at the bottom right-hand screen, I know this, those in the studio audience don't see it, but we have a chance to use an AI tool that can summarize documents. Some of the presentations are helpful to us to be summarized, and then you go back and look at the detail. It makes clear sense, but we have that tool. So we are excited to learn to use it, and we're going to work together to do it. The objective 3 is to continue to establish trust and confidence in Metro Health's governance from the community at large. Now, this was a goal of the 2024 board objectives. I think it remains a goal in 25 and certainly remains a goal in 2026. And we'll have to work together to understand how we can better do that. Objective 4 is to stay focused on short-term adjustments to long-term strategies. I know we're going to be dealing with some of those adjustments at today's board meeting. While there was an extensive effort led by Pete Benkowski to develop a longer-term 5-year view, reality has gotten in the way, and we're making adjustments appropriately. But we want to use our board time to understand how the adjustments are appropriate, but also linked to the long-term goals that we aspire to achieve. And some of the short-term goals we know that are before us that are requiring such adjustments are existing cost reduction initiatives, revenue cycle improvements, reimbursement policies by federal and state agencies, and in-process strategic initiatives such as the Apex facility investments to improve outpatient efficiencies and effectiveness. Those are just some of the bigger ones. Objective 5 is to continue to explore non-board members' expertise to improve board performance. This would include subject matter experts, particularly explore committee member structure and explore the use of task forces, subcommittees, and other ad hoc structures as we might deem appropriate to broaden the conversation to achieve more expertise and focus to bear on the mission of Metro Health. Item 6 is to continue to explore the structure, governance, performance of the board liaison position. We've been well served by Tamika and Veronica, but pressures have been placed upon them, additional responsibilities, and we want to understand what the board's unique requirements are versus the organization as a whole. And so we'll be leaning in on that in 2026. Number 7 is to continue to explore board governance issues. We mentioned non-committee members of the board's voting role at committee level. We'll be actually taking action today that will eliminate non-committee members of board committees voting at a committee meeting. That will be in the charter adjustments that we're about to undertake. And my thought there is, well, we'll certainly discuss that today as we consider those changes. But my sense is, like most of these governance issues, we should learn from our experiences. And if we need to make further adaptation or changes in the future, we should feel empowered to do so. So we believe these might be directionally appropriate at this moment in time. We reserve the right to make changes as our wisdom grows. We want to use the onboard document summary tools to improve oversight of the consent agenda items. We want to identify best practices regarding methods and processes to streamline board and committee agendas to create more opportunities for discussion and inquiry. We mentioned that earlier. And continue to review and reflect on board culture to improve our norms of board participation. Of particular interest is the expectation of board member attendance at committee meetings other than their assignments. And that gets to the voting question before us. And also to create a summary of board member expectations. And I'm going to be working with all board members to get a clearer understanding about expectations of meeting attendance, in-person versus virtual, commitment to arrive prepared, board member community engagement and advocacy, the use of board tools, and time commitment. And I did basically a casual calculation of how much time committee meetings and board meetings and preparation require at a minimum, and I identified 12 hours. I have no idea whether that's a realistic number. My guess is it's no less than that. The question is, if it's more than that on average, we would owe it to ourselves and to new board members to make that clear as we talk about their engagement and commitment to this board. So we'll use that as a starting point for discussion. We will also seek to provide meeting materials earlier than the customary 1 week to allow more time for review and meeting preparation. I think the board on board will allow us to do that more easily. And recognizing that we may get updates to these materials as we go through that, and that's appropriate as well. And finally, the objective 8 is board education, and we've identified 2 major subjects that are important to us. One is the revenue cycle and understanding the implications of that, and the regulatory reimbursement processes, issues and changes, and how that affects us. We've had many discussions of both those subjects, but a deeper understanding, I know I speak for myself, understand both the mechanics and the drivers of those changes would be helpful to get more wisdom to lean in on. So if we can make headway against these objectives in 2026, Mr. Chair, I think we'll earn our pay, which is 0. So I offer that for the record for the board's consideration, and we'll continue to work on those in the months ahead. Any questions on these? Any comments at this moment in time? Alrighty, let's proceed then to basically board review of revisions to the bylaws. So I'm going to refer to our Chief Legal Officer, James Mullins. James, do you want to take that over and talk about the bylaw shifts?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Article 8, Section 6 of the bylaws, the Governance Committee of the Board shall regularly review the bylaws and make necessary changes. In the attached document, the red line document, there are several cleanup and clarifying edits to the bylaws. These changes capture the revised name of the Population and Community Health Committee and makes clear that the chair of the board is an ex officio and voting member of all committees. Those are the substantive changes. Are there any questions?
Yeah, and no questions on my part. Dr. Walker?
No, I've seen these. It's fine.
Yeah. John? These are not radical shifts at all.
No.
They really just provide clarity, and that's helpful.
And if Dr. Walker's willing to be on all the committees.
Yeah.
For the record, Dr. Walker attends what?
Yes.
90% of
Well,
it.
most of it. So now I'm just gonna put ex officios on the ones that I know that you
Yeah.
like.
No, but I mean, every chair will have his or her way of doing things. Mine has been whenever possible, I at least virtually try to attend most of these. Not a big deal.
So, Brendan, quite a procedure here. I don't see where we actually vote later on in the meeting on approval of these revisions to bylaws. So I'm guessing,
Yeah, there's on the second page there, Mr. Chairman,
Is it in
under
the second page?
recommendations and resolutions, B.
oh, I see. Okay, very good. I see. Got it. All right, so we'll be voting later in the meeting on these particular changes. And then these actions by this committee will become part of the consent agenda, I believe, at today's meeting.
Correct.
And the only subject that we may choose to pull out is to get clarity on the discussion of non-committee members voting. I don't know if we.
I think it's worth it. It's worth making sure all board members are comfortable. So before we actually have the vote, I think another chance for any members who feel like they need to be heard on this issue would certainly be worthwhile. So we can take 2 minutes to, but I think the main person is Cuba, so.
Well, it worked.
So, but certainly, Mr. Chairman, it wouldn't hurt to ask any member, say,
I agree.
and I think the best thing is if you lead off, just like you led here, that we'll try it. If at some point people feel disenfranchised or uncomfortable, it just takes one board meeting of the governance community to take it back the other way.
Yep.
It doesn't have to, this isn't written in stone, and it takes 2/3 of the states to undo. We can undo this at the next meeting, so.
I agree. Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Mr. Summers, Ms. Garcia has joined, but her camera is off, so I just wanted to let you know that she is on.
Okay, great. Well, and Adam Jacobs has joined us. Thank you, Adam. Welcome. So we are, tell you what, if you want a copy of the agenda, why don't you pass that down? You got it. So we just presented item 2B, review of revisions to bylaws. And we noted that there really are not, there are substantive changes whatsoever, but clarity of language and terms and names. So that brings us to point C, review of the charter updates. Brendan, you want to walk us through all these?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Metro Health's board bylaws charge the governance committee with reviewing all committee charters from time to time. Accordingly, earlier this year, the governance committee asked the chairs of each standing committee to review their respective charters and present any proposed changes to the governance committee. Each committee has spent time within the last few months reviewing their respective charters and have presented proposed changes to the governance committee. Most revisions are cleanup and clarifying edits or intended to align on common language across all charters, including confirming that all trustees are invited to attend all committee meetings, but only members of the respective committees may vote on matters before their respective committee. The proposed changes are shown as track changes within your governance committee meeting book today so that you can easily review what language is changing. We will ask the governance committee to recommend these proposed changes for approval by the full board of trustees. Are there any questions or comments on the proposed revisions?
So we'll, why don't we'll talk about and acknowledge each of the committees, and then we'll basically recommend later in the meeting the approval of all these charter changes. But for example, the audit committee, and we have these in our board book. You can see the red line version, and you note that there's not much substantive change, but rather clarity about the work and the definitions of that work. I think audit's a good example where it does add internal audit. It adds the words champion internal audit to enable it to fulfill its purpose of internal auditing and to pursue its strategy and objectives. So it just provides emphasis of a duty that was already there. So there's no doubt of that responsibility. There's some other changes in the audit charter that provides clarity, but nothing that changes or alters the mission or the objectives. Would you agree with that summary?
Yes, absolutely.
So any questions on audit? And we don't necessarily need to spend time on all of these changes, but I think it's appropriate that we get a flavor of the nature of these charter changes. So the next change is our committee charter is executive committee. And it really, in this particular one, and you've got it in front of you, just emphasizes the purpose, which is to provide leadership, guidance, and oversight for the Board of Trustees. Just makes clear what the purpose of the committee is. And it changed it from words such as to provide leadership and insight. So it adds the word guidance in there to emphasize, I think, the leadership component. So not a substantial change. You get the idea there. I'm going to zip through these. If you have questions or thoughts or comments, stop me, please. Facilities and planning. It's a short charter, actually. And it does a lot of, I think, clerical corrections and improves some grammar. It corrects some misuse of words. For example, I'm looking at pertaining to the physician environment. It's supposed to be physical environment. So there was an error somewhere along the way, probably an autocorrect, and away we go. But you get the idea there. Finance committee, similar. Not a particularly long charter, but it clarifies its, I think its duties. And It does say, it makes clear that the investment subcommittee, all trustees of the board are invited to attend the meetings of the finance committee and its investment subcommittee, but only members of the finance committee, the investment subcommittee may vote. Now, I know John Moss, finance chair, was originally concerned about that because of the importance of finance in its review to our fiduciary responsibilities. But as he's thought it through, he told me last week that he was comfortable with these changes. So and then that leaves governance committee next, and there's not really any substantive change there. Human resource, similar changes, very little in this form of change. Population and health received the most major redlining primarily because of the terminology used to describe the work. So you will see much more there in terms of changes, but the scope and expectation of the duties are not materially changed. Bill, I know you work on that committee as well. Are you comfortable?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the content follows the description of the committee that it has for it. So it is about population health. It is about improving the care of the entire population. And it's simple, it's straightforward, it's 1 page or plus.
Alrighty, so those changes are also in front of you. Quality and safety, similar, not a lot of change there. And that leads us really to the next more substantive addition which is a new committee charter. And this is the strategy committee. And I know, Pete, we have, in fact, that strategy charter in front of us. Do you want to walk us through that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you. I'll just come up there. Good afternoon, everyone. In your
Pass this down.
onboard packet and underneath title 3D, you have a draft of the proposed strategy committee. I want to talk a little bit about a couple of things. One, I think the timing is really good for us to introduce this to this committee for endorsement and approval underneath 2 elements. One, it aligns with the strategic objective from the board retreat number 4 that Mr. Summers, you went over earlier about the board's desire to be involved, not only the short-term, but also the long-term objectives around the strategic vision of the organization, the strategic plan. We put this original strategy, it used to be called the Strategic Planning Committee, which I believe started about 2008. And then it melded into really the enterprise strategic plan, which was kicked off late 2023 and into 2024. We used that structure to help select the key objectives that we were going to look at with the enterprise strategic plan, and also the selection of the strategic consulting firm that came in and supported us and walked alongside us as we built the plan. We decided to put it on kind of on pause, right, in 2024, because we had the strategic plan that we were greatly involved in and moving forward with that process. And so Dr. Walker, Dr. Alexander Tamika, and I have been meeting throughout the course of that 2024 and throughout all of 2025 on a biweekly and then a monthly basis and talking about the strategic plan, and felt it was important for 2026 to bring this committee back and propose that we bring back the strategy committee, right? So those 2 parallel forces have really got us to this point where we are today. We took a first pass because what we looked at with this committee felt that it was really important that we make it around 4 key tenets: strategy, communications, marketing, and government relations. And so what you have in front of you in the draft is what our objectives are and responsibilities for each one of those 3 work streams. We've talked, at least at a very high level, to think about the meeting would involve an update from each one of those 4 elements that you have in front of you, from strategy, marketing, communications, and government relations, but then dive in deep in each one of those 4 meetings, because we're talking about meeting quarterly, at least throughout 2026. If we need to, we can refine and bring it back for approval if we feel like we need to meet more regularly, but we're proposing for 2026 to meet quarterly.
So as a point of process for this committee of governance, we'll consider this charter, we'll decide how we want to accept it or not. And then it will also go into the consent agenda. And we may want to pull this one out too, to make sure there's more awareness.
No problem.
When the board meets later this afternoon.
If I forget, remind me.
I will. My question is, I want to understand the work expectation of the committee versus what the board's responsibility is. I see all board members frankly have this duty. This particular subject is one that's really important to our responsibilities, and we all ought to work hard at it. But I'm gathering that there's some subset of work that needs to be done that would further the board's consideration of these issues, that would maybe help the board do its strategic work better. Is that a reasonable conclusion?
Yeah, and I would also say it will give us more time during these committee structures, right? And making sure that we're developing the agenda to allow us to go more in depth than we could with the full board, right? And so we will still bring strategic issues forward to the board, but more at a update or higher level. The in-depth work will happen within this committee.
In fact, what I would add is, I think if we look at what occurred when, as you said, out in 23 and 24, when we started a new strategic plan and we invited members of the board to work on that committee, I think it was useful because it allowed them to go a little more in depth to speak. Sometimes there were vendors, there were specific areas where we would spend an hour or something looking at it that we normally couldn't do for the full board. You're 100% correct. Strategy, just like finance, and pretty much everything, has to come back to the full board, has to get the full board's approval. And Pete has a regular schedule of times that he brings those to the full board to update. So that won't go away. It's not like we won't have strategy discussions at the full board the full board meetings. But similar to what happened in this committee, I found it helpful to have a number of board members dive a little bit deeper into some of these strategy issues. So then not only do you have Pete and his staff assisting, but you have one or two or however many board members who've been sort of a little bit further in the weeds than we normally get to in the board meeting. So that was when we began discussion from my point of view, was the important reason why it was an ad hoc committee. Before the board chair created an ad hoc strategy committee, it wasn't a permanent committee of the board. But I think at this point, and we just, as you said, we discussed this at a retreat. Since I got it from the board, we felt it was important enough that it was worth having a standing committee for now. And then if we reach strategy nirvana someday and never have to strategize again, we can make that committee go away.
All righty, so we're at the point in the meeting where we're still dealing with information items, no action. That'll be forthcoming momentarily. Any thoughts, John? Adam?
This is a large body of work that this committee will do. Is there option within the charter or the proposed charter to meet more often than quarterly?
Yeah, we propose quarterly as a trial basis for 2026, but we're open, right? We would need to bring it back.
The chair can call meetings off as they.
Yeah.
So if the chair of the committee feels they need to meet every 2 weeks, they can call and meet every 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, good questions. Any further discussion on this before we go on to the last information items? Last two. All right, thanks, Pete.
Okay, thank you.
So the last two information items, point E, 2E, are review Board of Trustees policies and revisions, 08 board expenses and reimbursement, and 09 CEO expense and reimbursement. So Chief Legal Officer Wellens, you want to walk us through this? And we have the details in our on-board book as well.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, the Governance Committee of the Board previously reviewed the draft of policy BOT 08, which is the Board of Trustees Expenses and Reimbursement, to memorialize the guidelines and processes for handling the board expenses and reimbursement. Feedback from that previous review and additional clarifications have been incorporated into the revised document which is attached to the board book. We will ask that the committee recommend to the board the adoption and approval of this policy.
And am I correct that this was never formally adopted before?
That is correct.
And as a practical matter, and I would look to Tamika here, what kind of expenses do we have? I know right now we have litigation expenses, which are on our budget, is that
That's
correct? And then we have some administrative meeting expenses that are on our budget. I'm not aware of any travel that we've done that required reimbursement, but I suppose in
We
a,
have in the past, but we wanted to make it possible that if someone, if there was like the meeting that the bill went to, or we received an award, if a board member wanted to go and represent the organization, that we could reimburse them for travel, or there may be sometimes the Governance Institute has just specific board-centered meetings to talk about these issues, so we wanted to have some capability to say, for if a board member felt that he or she could benefit from that and bring that benefit back to the organization, that we could reimburse travel for that.
just a curious question, Director, D&O insurance, is that under the board expense as well?
No, it's not.
That's
That's
part of the general corporate.
correct.
Okay. Any questions on board expense? Dolores, I forgot you're up there. Any questions?
No, I mean, sort of along the similar lines, just because I'm still a relative newbie, like what kind of expenses is this usually including?
Yeah, so I guess we talked about meeting administration. I presume that's
Lunch,
lunch.
yeah.
That's very important.
And then right now we have litigation expenses that are also in our budget.
Okay.
Possible conferences, Dolores, any conferences that you might want to attend. So the governance, as Dr. Walker alluded to, the Governance Institute does have board-related conferences that you guys could attend, or even going to the American Essential Hospitals conferences or American Hospital Association conferences with Allison. So that is some opportunities that we wanted to afford the board members.
I think there's a benefit for board members to be able to do that because you just learn stuff from other places, like just having exposure to how other health systems operate and stuff like that is not a bad thing, so.
Well, and I presume when we brought Kim Russell in to be our facilitator, that was part of our board expenses.
Yes.
So our board retreat and the facilitation that we retained was a good example.
I have a question. Because we receive Medicaid, do board members have to submit the social security number?
No.
We ever done that?
Some.
Yeah, so so I know that for certain, that's interesting. Now, I don't have the answer to you. We'll look it up because I know we run into that subject when we were opening one of our related entities, but that was a for-profit entities, and we had to disclose the board members
So where I was going,
on the Medicaid application.
so where I was going with this is, I know at my last agency, the executive committee board had to do that. And of course, they would check for fraud. And then the agency reimbursed the board members for LifeLock or because then their social security numbers were exposed. So I'm not sure
Well,
what,
we will certainly look into that because.
Yeah, I'm not sure for us if we.
Social security number, no names and
Yeah.
just names. But we will look into that for sure.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. Right,
That's a good point.
if there's no further questions on board expenses, let's move to the last information item, which is item 2E, number 2 on our agenda, review revisions to board policy BOT 09 CEO expense reimbursement. And we have a copy of these changes in front of us. In my understanding, it really dealt with expense approval processes and where that boundary and responsibility lives. James or Brendan, and then I would ask Dr. Walker to weigh in on from your experience as well.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned earlier, the governance committee of the board has made several clarifying edits to policies, including BOT 09 CEO expense reimbursement, and is described in the red line draft attached to the board book. These revisions ensure that the CEO expenses are included within the system's annual budget and approved by the board, instead of requiring biannual reporting to the board. We will ask the governance committee to recommend this policy change to the board.
And Dr. Walker, you want to share your experience perhaps? Or perhaps not.
Too many experiences. I mean, I think the goal is we don't want to hamstring the CEO. We obviously, if we hire a CEO, we trust him or her to do things appropriately. But on the other hand, we want to make sure that the board doesn't want to be caught in a situation we have no knowledge of what's going on with expenses. Because what you get caught in is, did you know the CEO bought a $50,000 yacht and signed it to Metro as part of the thing, and the board doesn't want to be saying, oh no, we didn't realize that was going on. So I think an annual budget is fine. The second part, which I think you'll talk about in a minute, is just we had previous problem with CEOs, how often they were leaving the country and the system. And I think, again, it's not a trust issue, it's more of a public issue, is that when people hear that the CEO is in Germany for 2 weeks, they sometimes can understand from a public hospital why that may or may not be appropriate. And again, without this, the board chair or the board had no idea if the CEO was in Germany for 2 weeks. So we thought it was best something on that area to at least have a conversation. So again, no reflection on the current CEO. I know where she is all the time.
Because I call you all the time.
And she knows where I am all the time. So
You
we
guys
don't
have each
have
other's
this.
phone.
Right.
We're on the Friends and Family program. But I mean, I think it's just make sure that the board, as part of its fiduciary responsibility, has some awareness that funds are being used appropriately. But one, to balance that with not wanting to check every dime that the CEO does, or if they want to go to an educational conference, in California next week for something about CEO, then don't feel like I don't want the CEO calling me or the next board chair or anybody else about that. We should trust our CEO to do that. But at a somewhat annual basis, to know where the funds are going, I think would meet our fiduciary responsibilities.
What if they reported to you just on an annual basis to the board chair, like at the end of the year, what the expenses were?
I mean, whatever is appropriate. I want the board to be comfortable as well. I'm comfortable with that, and
Yeah, because I don't want to sort of spread it all over the place, but I just feel better if.
Well, let's do this. Let's go with what we're intending here, but as we experience it, we can refine changes.
Okay.
And by the way, I'm particularly sensitive to this notion of CEO of a government entity, and we are a government entity. And I know as a mayor, I didn't go anywhere out of fear that if something went wrong and you're not there, and everybody's saying, where is, in my case, our
we have
mayor?
lived through that.
Yeah. So
Not
it's,
with the current CEO, but
it's a
we have
trick.
lived through
I
that.
mean, it puts handcuffs on you personally, and that's regretful. But it is a unique nature of a government, which is basically chartered to serve people of Cuyahoga County in this case, and it's a sensitive and solemn duty. And they would expect you and us to be at our duty post if it was a critical issue. Recently, the mayor of Los Angeles, when the fires broke out, and I don't know if you remember, I happened to be in Los Angeles, and the mayor was in some distant African country at the request of the then president of the United States. And the fires were burning out of control, and everybody was running around saying, where's our mayor? And that's a great example where it was a legitimate trip doing bona fide work on behalf of the broader federal government, I suspect. But people don't have a sense of humor about that. So I think we all are keenly aware of that, and I am especially. So,
I'm with you on that. I'm always very, very aware of it. And I happen to have a lot of travel in September that we had, important advocacy meetings that we needed to be at. And that sense of not being here, the team is incredible. There wasn't an issue, but for me personally, I feel like this is where I need to be for the vast majority the time. You
Well,
know?
I think if you're in the lower 48, you can get home fast. If you're not in the lower 48, you may not be able to get home fast. And that makes it a little trickier.
Yes.
So,
I assume all those will all be public records.
Yeah, they can
So
be-
anybody could.
Anybody can request it.
Anybody could request
Yeah.
all of it, so.
And they have.
Yeah,
and they
I'm sure
in
they
the past.
have.
They requested all of Buchel's travel information, all of Erica's travel information. You know,
Yeah, so it's all, I mean, so to.
So you have to be aware that it's gonna be released, so.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's really, so this is a guardrail.
Yeah.
This is a guardrail. So we're asking the board through the chair to review and approve a second set of eyes about what seems to be appropriate at this moment in time in the enterprise's history and capacity. That's what we're setting ourselves up to do, correct?
Right, that, I mean, again, it's just the right, again, Dr. Oz, I meant I knew she was going to store, I knew where she was, I knew what was going on. That hasn't always been the case with CEOs. I've been in the situation where I was surprised, to be cool, laugh to find out. I say, where's the CEO? She's X, Y, or Z. And I was unaware that the CEO was at X, Y, or Z for X, Y, or Z amounts of time. So, so that's what we want to make sure that the board, that's not appropriate, so.
Yeah. Adam, sorry, you had a thought.
Maybe just that the CEO reports out to the board chair quarterly, that seems.
Well, it sounds like they're even more frequently than
I
that.
say, you put it here whatever you want. We know what's going on. Yeah. I mean, if I'm at whoever it is, the next board chair, whoever that shall be, hopefully they're having a good relationship with the CEO and we're writing down things that no one anticipated in the past that we would have to do. But, you know, life takes you through some experiences and you learn, like I say, sometimes you need guardrails because in the past, when I actually talked to a CEO about this, they pointed out to me that there was nowhere in the bylaws that they had to tell where they go. And they were correct. They had no responsibility. Of course, it also says the bylaws I'm their boss, but that was a whole nother discussion for another day.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. So we're making these revisions in the spirit of accountability and transparency and experience.
Right.
Where we find out what we didn't have as our tool in our.
It's easier to make these revisions when things are going well.
Yeah, sure.
So that when things aren't going well, that we have something to point to. So I think it's.
Well, but you, both John and Adam have raised questions. The reporting basically is eliminated. There's no official reporting requirement, correct? Other than the conversation
If the expenses in the policy, if the expenses don't meet the criteria in section 2, for the benefit of Metro Health,
right,
be modest, appropriate, and reasonable, or follow the guidelines in policy FI03, then the expenses have to be reported to the CFO and the board chair or vice chair.
Okay, all right. Are we comfortable with that for now?
Yeah, like Lola, I'm a newbie and it just seems.
Yeah,
Anything-
Lola, do you have an opinion on this? On board reporting of CEO expenses?
No, I'm pleading newbie again, but no, I think I didn't have any questions. It all seems pretty reasonable.
Okay, all right. So, are you okay? All right, so that concludes the information items. They're extensive. Now, Adam, just before you arrived, we did go through the committee charter updates, all of them. And those are now before us. And what I'll be asking for are motions to approve the updated bylaws first, and then all the committee charters, the addition of the new strategy committee, and then the changes to the trustees' policies 08 and 09. So let's take them in groups. First, I would ask for approval of the revisions to the bylaws as they have been presented to us. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. And again, Adam, unfortunately, you missed the discussion, but what we identified is there's really no substantive change to the bylaws. It's about some clerical revisions, some clarity, and then some name changes. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the revisions to the bylaws signify by saying aye or raising their hands.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that makes the change there. The next item are the approval of the committee charters. So a point of process, do we want to do them one at a time or can we do them as a group?
We can do them collectively, Mr. Chairman.
If everybody's read about it, I can do them as a group.
All right, so let's do this. Do I hear a motion to approve the committee charter updates? Committee charters 1 through 8, audit, executive committee, facilities and planning, finance, governance, human resources, population, community, and quality and safety. We'll take these as a group unless someone wants to pull an item out. Seeing none, all those, do I hear a motion to approve these? And second?
Second.
Now moved and seconded, all those in favor of approving the committee charters as presented to us, signify by saying aye or raising your hands.
Aye.
All right, so those stand changed. Now, by making those moves, we're recommending to the board in the consent agenda
Right.
that this deals with the issue of non-committee members no longer can vote at the committee level.
I'm practicing doing that today. so-
Yeah, there you go.
So well.
Although today
I
you
had
could
to-
actually, because
Oh,
that's not
yeah.
official
I'm
yet.
trying to get in the habit of
Uh,
So we will- as he said, we will pull those out at the board meeting to give any board members one last chance if they want to discuss this.
And so the next item on our agenda is the approval of the new strategy committee charter. I think, Adam, you were here for that, correct? Do I hear a motion to approve the strategy committee charter?
So moved.
Moved and seconded.
Second.
Any discussion on the strategy committee chart? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
And the last two items were the approval of board policy 08, board expenses and reimbursement. Do I hear a motion to approve the revisions to this?
So moved.
Wait, and seconded?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Revisions to board policy 08, board expenses and reimbursement. If there's no further discussion, I would ask all those to approve of these revisions to signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the last item will be the approval of revisions to board policy 09, CEO expense reimbursement. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
So moved. And second? Moved and seconded that board policy 09 be approved as revised. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye or raising their hands.
Aye.
Okay, well, that stands approved. I think that concludes our business. What are we doing here?
Record time.
Wow.
How about that? There's no need for executive session. I think we conducted all our business.
All this is public knowledge.
So I know the governance committee is thrilled to have this vast population of watchers at this most momentous moment. But seriously, thank you for your attention to these matters, and if there's no objection, this meeting stands adjourned.
Really?